If you've ever been confused about all the different end time views, premillennial, postmillennial, amillennial, then you are not going to want to miss this video. We're going to give you a brief but very detailed explanation of all the major end time views. Now, before we jump in, make sure you subscribe to this channel, click on the bell so that you can be notified when new videos come out. You know, one of the reasons why many people avoid studying the end times is because once you start studying the subject, you quickly learn that there is an entire vocabulary and language that people use. And if you don't already know what all of these terms mean, it can get real confusing real fast. So I want to remove some of the confusion and explain the primary views surrounding the end time events. Now, in order to understand the different views, you have to understand four major time periods. The first one is the church age, which is the age after Jesus's resurrection. Then you have the tribulation period, which is a 7-year time period of war, hardship, and suffering. Then you have the millennial kingdom. This is where Jesus reigns on the earth for 1,000 years. Then the eternal state, where saints live with Jesus in the new heaven and new earth. And so all the views that we're going to look at revolve around these four time periods. Okay. The first one is historic premillennialism. It's called historic because this was the position of the early church, and it's premillennial because they believe that Jesus is going to come back pre or before the millennial reign of Christ. Proponents of this view believe that the rapture and the second coming of Christ are the same event, not two separate events. So they believe there's going to be a 7-year tribulation period, and at the end of that 7 years, Christ is going to come back and literally rule and reign on the earth for 1,000 years. And when Christ comes back, we will receive glorified bodies where we will rule and reign with him during that time period. Number two, amillennialism or amillennialism. Whenever you put the prefix a in front of something, it negates it. So atheist is no God. So an amillennialist means that there is no 1,000-year period. Now, they do believe in a 1,000-year period, but they say it's a symbolic 1,000 years, not a literal 1,000 years. And so this view believes that we are currently living in the millennial reign of Christ, that Christ is now ruling and reigning through his church. So there isn't a literal 1,000-year period where Christ comes. That 1,000 is kind of symbolic of a really long period of time. So there's no rapture, no tribulation, no Antichrist, no mark of the beast. It's just Jesus comes back and we enter into the eternal state. Number three, postmillennialism. All right. So proponents of this view believe that Jesus will come back after the 1,000-year millennial reign. This view believes that the world will not get worse and worse, that it'll actually get better and better as the church sort of Christianizes the world. And when the church has done its job of taking the gospel of the kingdom to the ends of the earth, then Christ will come back. And number four, modern premillennialism. It's called modern because this is the most recent view. Some people also call it dispensational premillennialism. And so this view is similar to historic premillennialism, except that it views the second coming as two distinct events. So you have the rapture, which happens before the tribulation, and then after the 7-year tribulation period, at the very end, Jesus Christ comes back, and that is the second coming. So at the rapture, Jesus comes back for his church, and then at the second coming, Jesus comes back with his church to kick off the millennial reign. The last view that we will look at is Panmillennialism, which means I don't know how it's all going to go down, but it'll all pan out one way or another. Come on, that's funny. I don't care what you say, right? Proponents of this view say, hey, look, I'm on the welcoming committee, not the planning committee, all right? So I don't know how it's all going to go down, but I'm ready for whatever. These are the four main views of the end time events. Now, in order to help you better understand these events, I want to show you a picture that Peter Haas put together. It really helps kind of simplify all four of these views because he puts them into two sets of twins. So historic premillennialism and modern premillennialism or dispensational premillennialism are similar to each other, while amillennialism and postmillennialism are similar to each other. So the first set of twins are the premillennialists. These are called the literal twins because they both believe the millennial kingdom has not yet come. They believe Jesus is literally coming back to rule and reign on the earth for a literal 1,000 years. Just like Christ literally came the first time, he will come again literally the second time to rule and reign. So the first one is the modern or the dispensational premillennialist, which is actually the most popular view in Christianity today, right? This guy has the I Love Left Behind t-shirt on because proponents of this view believe the Left Behind books and movies got it right when they portrayed the rapture taking place before the tribulation, right? So this guy says it's gonna get worse, but the church will miss it. So we will miss all the really bad stuff that's going to happen during the tribulation because Jesus will rapture the church before the tribulation starts. Jesus will take all the believers off the face of the earth in one moment. And if you're left behind, just pray that you're not on a plane with Christian pilots when it happens. And so once the rapture takes place, things on earth are going to get really bad because once you remove the preserving agent from the earth, which is the church, things are going to get bad quick. Right? This guy also has the Israel flag because they believe that God is going to use the tribulation period to turn Israel back to God. Now, the twin of this view is historic premillennialism. This guy's shirt says pre-400 AD because this was the view that was held by the early church for the first 400 years of church history. Now, the main difference between this view and its twin is that they don't believe in the rapture. This view believes that Christians will go through the tribulation period, which is why he says the world is going to get worse, but the church will overcome it. We still have to go through the tribulation, but we don't have to be afraid of the tribulation because through Christ we will overcome. And then at the end of the 7-year tribulation period, Christ will come back to usher in the millennial kingdom, which will last for a literal 1,000 years. Now you have the second set of twins. They are amillennialism and postmillennialism. These are called the symbolic twins because they both take a symbolic approach to the end times. These views believe that the millennial reign started the moment Christ ascended to heaven. His reign is a spiritual reign, not a literal one. That right now Christ is ruling and reigning through the church, and one day he's coming back. So we are living in the millennial reign of Christ right now as we await his return. And this view is actually really simple. There's no tribulation, no Antichrist, no mark of the beast. All right, don't look at the events in Revelation as literal. It's all symbolic of things that Christians have experienced through the ages. It's all metaphors and allegories, not literal events. In fact, any events that, can't be seen as symbolic are things that have already happened in the past, mainly in 70 AD. So they are not events that will happen in the future. And that's why the amillennialist shirt says chill, right? Don't get all worked up about the end time stuff. It's all symbols and metaphors, not literal events. So put your rapture rug away and calm down. A millennialist says it's simple. Christ is returning. No rapture, roadmaps, or much scary stuff, right? So things on earth won't really get better, but they're not going to get catastrophically worse, so you don't have to worry. Now, postmillennialism is different from amillennialism in that they believe the world will not get worse and worse. It'll get better and better because there is an unstoppable move of the Holy Spirit which has been breaking forth since the day of Pentecost. So things will get better and better until we completely take over this world for Jesus, and then Jesus is coming back, right? That's why this guy's shirt says, I love positivity, right? Because all the other views have, varying degrees of negativity, right? Some, believe that things are going to get really bad. Others, only slightly bad, but not much better. So they all have slightly negative events happening in the end times. But this view is all positive. That is a basic summary of the main views of the end times. Now, there are obviously some problems with some of these views, but I wanted to give you a general understanding of all the different views. Because, if I just shared the view that I believe in, you aren't already, grounded in what you believe about the end times, it would have been really easy for me to sway you to believe what I believe. But then all that it would take is somebody else who comes along with a slick argument to talk you out of it, because you've never even heard the other views. You've never even considered whether or not they might be true. So I think it's important to have a general understanding of all the different views before, we start to pull them apart, which I will do in another video. But the one thing that all these views have in common is that Jesus is coming back. And when he does, he will judge the living and the dead, and there will be a heaven and hell for all eternity. So there is more that we agree on than disagree on. All right, now how all these events are going to play out, there's a lot of different views, so we don't need to be really dogmatic about what we believe about the end times, because they are all based on some really big assumptions that we bring to the scriptures. But the one thing that we all agree on is that Jesus is coming back, so we better get busy. Hey, if you found this video helpful, do me a favor and literally smash that like button, all right? I don't want any metaphorical likes. I want a literal like, and literally subscribe to this channel. And hey, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on the end times, maybe what view you subscribe to. So let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. And remember, if it's not good, God's not done.